Am I the antagonist for texting family members when my mom doesn't come home? I am a 17-year-old girl with a 9-year-old autistic sister. My mother asked me to look after my sister while she went out for a meal with friends on Saturday. She doesn't do this often since she was in a toxic relationship for 11 years, so I agreed to help, despite knowing my sister's bedtime anxiety. My mother, 53, was supposed to return around 11 or 12 at night, but she didn't. My sister can't sleep without her, so I tried calling and texting my mother but got no response. By 1 a.m. I was worried and reached out to one of my older sisters and 2 aunts for information on who my mother went out with. No one responded, unsurprisingly, and by 2 a.m. I was scared. My little sister finally went to sleep, but I didn't feel comfortable sleeping without my mother being safely home. I continued trying to reach my mom until 4 a.m., at which point I decided to lock the door and leave a key, texting her all the info. I woke up at 7 a.m. to find my mother still hadn't returned. I waited for a reply, and she called around 9 a.m., explaining she went clubbing and fell asleep at her shop since she had had too much to drink. Once home, she complained about me involving others and threatened to stop going out, saying, and I quote, "Right, well, I'll just never go out again then if this is what's going to happen," and telling me that I had made her feel guilty for having fun. She told me that I'm 17 and could have handled it myself, and that I didn't need to text others, making them unnecessarily worried. I didn't think it was wrong to text family to make sure she was okay. I didn't care that she had gone out clubbing. I was annoyed at her lack of communication. I was worried all night waiting for a response and felt so uncomfortable sleeping without knowing where she was. And I know that if it was the other way around, she'd have a problem. She's cared for 8 children, she knows how to parent, and all of her children have done well for themselves, but I feel like she's starting to care less as she's gotten older. I made a sarcastic comment about how I won't bother next time, and if she's dead then oopsie. I know it was wrong of me to say, but I was genuinely concerned for her safety, and her having to go pissed me off. Her excuse for not communicating was that she was having fun, and that when you're out and drinking, you don't really look at your phone. She said I should have assumed this. I literally had no clue that she was going out to a club. Also, I feel like I should state that I have Tourette's syndrome, and being in stressful situations can make me tick more. I felt uncomfortable looking after my little sister without knowing where my mother was because it's unsafe. If I'm stressed and have a tick attack, my little sister could easily hurt herself or me without anyone else there to look out for her. Did I make the wrong choice by texting others? I feel stupid, honestly. Am I the a-hole? She could have given you a heads up and you wouldn't have been so understandably worried. Your autistic sister still probably wouldn't have been happy, but at least you would have known your mom was safe and not in a ditch or something. Just because you could handle an emergency doesn't mean she should create one. You weren't psychic. You were worried. She created the situation where you were reasonably worried. Drinking might be her reason but isn't an excuse. She is responsible for the care of you both. Am I the antagonist because I won't pay to continue housekeeping services for my wife? My spouse is an individual who has always had a housekeeper from a young age. When we first discussed moving in together before marriage, the division of chores was a hot topic. I was on team, we can do it ourselves, and they wanted to keep using the housekeeping service they had. Ultimately, I agreed to the housekeeping service after both our parents told me it'd be easier to agree to make them happy. My only thing was that it was a service they were responsible for paying for. They started out having them come every other week, then once a week, to every other day to keep the house as clean as they liked it, and do things like their laundry and emptying the trash in their hobby room. Mid-January, my spouse was let go when their company downsized. They have been having a hard time finding a job in their field. For now they are working part-time in retail. We weren't making amazing money before they were let go, but we live comfortably due in part to living below our means for the most part. Since their current job doesn't pay much, I said that I would cover all of our joint expenses, mortgage, property tax, utilities, and our phones, so they don't have to deplete their savings and our savings won't suffer as much either. They paid for the cleaning service in February, but then yesterday asked me if I was going to set up a direct payment with the cleaning company or transfer them the money to keep paying them. It's done $190 a week. I told them neither. The housekeeping service was something they wanted and were responsible for. If they can't afford it anymore without dropping their savings below a point they're comfortable with, then we don't need it, and I'm not going to pay for something 2 able-bodied adults are perfectly capable of doing ourselves. We argued. They say I know how much they hate cleaning and that it stresses them out, and since the housekeeper cleaned up areas like the kitchen and living room and made the bed sometimes, I was benefiting from it, so it counts as a joint expense. I've told them it doesn't because I'm perfectly happy to clean up after myself and have cleaned rooms before when they needed it between visits. Fast forward to today and they think I'm still being selfish by not paying for it. Am I being an here? I've been doing housework even with the housekeeper. I do my own laundry, I make our bed most days, I clean up after our pets, clean the kitchen after we cook, and that includes the oven, stove, microwave. I take out the trash and recycling, clean the AC filters. I dust between visits. I'll sweep and clean the bathrooms between visits, clean up the shower and sinks after each use. I pick up after myself. Most of what the housekeeper does is already done by the time they show up. If my spouse is home, then it's their mess that gets cleaned up. or their clothes, plates, items that they leave around. The housekeeper also cleans their hobby room, does their laundry, and whatever else my spouse asks. They're just used to having a daily cleaner due to their childhood. Having a housekeeper is a luxury, not a necessity like some people seem to believe. $760 per month is a lot of money to spend, especially when you are down from 2 incomes to 1.5. If she can't afford this luxury, she should find another way to pay for it rather than expecting you to cover the cost. Adulting involves doing undesirable tasks like cleaning, not relying on expensive services. She needs to humble herself and realize that most people don't have the luxury of a housekeeper. End of discussion. My spouse is lovesick for someone they just met. Is that a form of infidelity? My spouse recently met someone and has become infatuated with them. We've been married 15 years and have children. My spouse has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and gets hyper-fixated on projects, so this is kind of like that, but feels different in that they want to have a relationship with this other person. About a year ago, she reconnected with an old friend and brought up wanting to be polyamorous. I gave it the college try and couldn't go through with it. Recently, she went to a conference for a week and came back with a new friend of the opposite gender. I'm totally fine that they have friends, and we're open about our friendships even of the opposite gender. This one, however, she was kind of cagey. Like all of a sudden needing to go get gas and taking 90 minutes, only to find out afterwards they were talking to this person on video chat. It's been about 3 weeks, and she hasn't been able to focus on typical things. She's constantly thinking about this person. Friday, my spouse brought up wanting to be polyamorous. She feels that being polyamorous is just who she is. Okay, I'm somewhat open to this and willing to hear them out. We had a great and open conversation about it. I even admitted some attraction to people that I also had. Until yesterday, while she was out and about, she became so embarrassed by an interaction she had with their crush, they emotionally crashed and went straight to bed for the rest of the day. The thing was genuinely a small deal, but she became so embarrassed. I was feeding our kids dinner last night and overheard my spouse say to a friend on the phone recounting the story, "This is what it looks like when I'm lovesick." So last night and today I'm listening to her tell me her plight with as little judgment as I can, hear their stresses and empathizing with their infatuation, and trying to be open with my feelings. But I don't feel safe to tell all to my spouse without negative repercussions. She's being open and honest with their attraction to this person, but it still hurts. I feel a little jealous of this person, but I don't feel threatened. I trust my spouse, and I have a lot more going for me. Reason I ask if this is a form of infidelity is because this doesn't feel like part of our relationship agreement. I'm totally fine with them having one-on-one relationships with people they're attracted to, however, this lack of being able to function feels over a line. We may not have formally defined where that line was, but it feels to me like a relationship line was crossed. So, is this infidelity or should I just get over it? She was having an emotional affair with the man, and it is a form of cheating. Yes, this is infidelity, and you need to set firm boundaries she shouldn't cross in the future. Being obsessed with someone to a level where you stop functioning is not healthy for a human being, and twice as much for a relationship. People have crushes during their life, no big deal as long as they take appropriate actions to not let it go any further. Your wife is in another realm and may need some professional help. Don't do poly unless you want your marriage to be over. Am I the antagonist for telling my dad he's a horrible parent and that I'll never forgive him for giving my mom's jewelry to my stepmother? Growing up, I was a difficult child and was always rude to my mother. She passed away in January 2019. I was 16, and I was quite honestly extremely broken and couldn't forgive myself for the way I treated her while she was alive. My father had apparently been planning on remarrying and started seeing my now stepmother from the beginning of 2020. They got married in December 2020. The most hurtful thing for me regarding this was the fact that he didn't tell me about her. I accidentally found out and had to confront him, and only then did he tell me he had been planning on remarrying. I tried to get along with her and be as nice as I could allow myself to be, since I was still grieving. Things didn't go well, and we got into fights all the time because she was always trying to be in control of my daily life and be involved in my academics, which I didn't feel comfortable with since neither of my parents ever did that. And I've always been independent and self-sufficient with my education and career decisions. They would only ever advise me. She would keep making comments like, "You cannot study such a difficult course. Your dad should have chosen something easier and less expensive," and it made me angry. Things kept spiraling, and it got to a point where she would be jealous of the smallest forms of support or efforts my dad put in for me, with sarcastic remarks like, "I don't understand why you keep prioritizing your daughter over everybody else in your life. It's like you can never love anyone more than her." Note: my dad isn't big on affection or caring words, gets easily flustered or awkward with affection. I later found out that my dad and his mother gave her my mom's most valuable belongings, including her jewelry, and they haven't even mentioned it to me. I told him that I was upset about it and didn't want somebody else having my mom's belongings. He said those were bought with his money and that I'm not old enough to be worrying about these things. The fights got worse, and every time she would blame me for wasting my dad's money, I was literally telling him what outfit I want for my birthday. One time it spiraled out of control, and she told me to never eat the food she made and asked me to get out. My dad didn't stand up for me and only dropped me off at my friend's place for the weekend. I told him he's a horrible parent for not standing up for his child and letting his wife treat me this way, and that I'll never forgive him for giving up my mom's gold to her. I told him I've never seen him respect my mom's opinions or wishes, and that it won't change the fact that he was a horrible husband just because he supports my stepmother with all her opinions and wishes now. Not the antagonist. Despite what your stepmom says, I can tell you're smart enough for them. Your dad has grossly let you down for years, if not maybe your entire childhood. He may be legally fine, but giving your mother's jewelry to his wife was morally wrong and just tacky. And I can't imagine taking the jewelry of a woman who passed and left a grieving child. Sounds like your dad and his wife deserve each other as they're both terrible. I'm sorry you're going through this. Please keep working really hard in school and build up a good life for yourself. Eventually you'll never have to see these people again. Our friend is infatuated with my partner, and I feel betrayed by her. What now? My partner, male 28, and I, female 30, both have a female friend, 27, who is part of a larger friendship group. We've known her for about a year. He is closer to her than I am, but we both considered her as a friend. We both have multiple friends of the opposite sex. That's always been fine for us, been together 10 years. The friend, female, began to bother me a little because she would interact with him in a way which I perceive as flirtatious. She is currently single and straight. Me and my partner just put this down to the way she is, and he reassured me a bit that she was like that with other guys also. It didn't bother either of us enough to shut it down. I didn't want to make the situation awkward by saying anything. I also doubted my own perception of this. Maybe it wasn't really flirting. Besides, she was our friend. I trusted that nothing malicious was going on. We recently went on a group holiday where her flirting intensified to things like eating from his plate, little touches, play fighting during a game. I made a jokey remark about it which she brushed off, but otherwise didn't say anything. I didn't want to rock the boat on this group holiday, but I was uncomfortable. On returning from the holiday, she suddenly completely iced him out. She actively avoided him now in an obvious way, leaving when he joins a conversation, bailing on plans if he says he is coming, etc. When he asked her what was up, she said she wanted space and stopped replying to his texts, and he was confused, thinking maybe he did something to upset her, but couldn't think of anything. This went on for weeks, and then it finally transpired that she has an infatuation for him. We are not a super public displays of affection couple, and on the holiday was probably the first time she saw us being coupley. Plus, it was the first time anyone called out the flirting, AmITheA. So I guess now, instead of being an adult about it, she supposedly can't stand to be around him and is punishing him. She acts like nothing has changed around me. Now we are in a weird stalemate where no one is openly acknowledging anything. I feel like I can't react or speak to her about this, as she has only spoken to him about it over text, not me. I feel so massively betrayed by her. We were supposed to be friends. I trusted her. I feel now like all the times we hung out, she was just eyeing up my partner, and maybe she was just using me to get closer to him. I'm having trouble understanding and rationalizing her behavior. My partner is convinced it's nothing malicious and she didn't mean to hurt anyone, but I'm having a hard time believing that. I don't have many friends and I have a hard time opening up to people. I told her personal things about myself and my relationship, and I feel so crushed that she could behave this way. Her behavior is becoming obvious to the rest of the friendship group. I feel awkward as could be. My partner wants to repair his friendship with her, and we both want to continue hanging out with the friend group. What do I do? It seems there may be a few possible scenarios at play here. It's possible that your friend was infatuated with your boyfriend and got carried away with her feelings, leading to her sudden change in demeanor. Alternatively, she could be intentionally testing the dynamics of your relationship and seeking attention from your boyfriend. Or, worst case scenario, your boyfriend could have been leading her on for his own satisfaction. Regardless, it's important to address the situation and communicate with your partner. While it may be difficult, it's crucial to set boundaries and prioritize your own well-being in this situation. Am I the antagonist for accidentally making my pregnant friend cry? My 26 years old female friend, 24 years old female, we will call her Tammy, of 2 years, who I happen to work with, is currently pregnant after a successful in vitro fertilization. Tammy went into credit card debt to do in vitro fertilization because she couldn't afford it otherwise. She has a lot of financial issues and, in my opinion, should have waited to have a baby given she has zero savings and barely makes ends meet. Her mom has paid for everything baby-related so far, furnished her entire nursery, because she doesn't have money to. I have noticed that Tammy often expects things because she is pregnant. For example, she says she has pregnancy privilege and has to eat first every day. We go one at a time on break. And if she doesn't get to go first, she says she has to take an extra 15 minutes. If someone else goes first, she says they are selfish for doing that to a pregnant girl. Her spouse took a week off work to prepare baby's nursery, so the whole week Tammy called in sick and had everyone work short while she was actually out to eat shopping because she wanted to hang out with her spouse and soak up the time they have before baby comes. The following week she actually ended up getting sick and had to miss another week of work, but called me crying because she couldn't afford to not have the money on her paycheck, but also blew through her paid time off and didn't have any. My husband said it sounded like she called me hoping I'd donate some of my paid time off to her. A lot more has happened, but there's a character limit, so can't go too in depth. Today she brought up to me that she noticed no one is buying things off of her baby registry for her shower in 2 weeks. Tommy had a friend text her about how she got excited and went a little overboard with gift, but Tammy said she was frustrated because she checked her registry and nothing had been purchased. She went off on a tangent that she hopes everyone attending shower, aka me, buys off of her registry and doesn't screw her over by buying things that they want to buy, because she is banking on her registry for most of her baby's needs. I responded by nicely saying that she should be grateful for people showing up with gifts, and that it is a bit unfair to be upset with friends for that. I also told her that saying all this to a guest coming to said shower is uncomfortable because she's making it sound like she will be mad if I don't follow the registry. She started crying and said she's nervous that she won't get what she wants for the baby, and that she doesn't think it's asking too much to buy what she wants because it's about her. She didn't say much the rest of the day, and I heard her on the phone with her spouse saying I upset her and that I was harsh. She had similar expectations for her wedding. Her mom paid for it but said Tommy can pay for bar, but instead, she had guests bring your own booze to avoid costs. She mentioned numerous times leading up that she hoped her guests would give nice monetary gifts because her honeymoon was dependent on it, yet was not willing to spend any of her own money. I was good friends with her until I saw how entitled and ungrateful of a person she is. She gets through life by banking on others to take care of her needs and will do anything necessary to get her way. If we didn't work together, I wouldn't be friends with her any longer, but I have no choice as we are co-workers and work in a very small team that would be very awkward if we didn't get along anymore. This woman sounds like she has a champagne lifestyle with a lemonade budget, and her entitlement is unreal. Just because she's pregnant doesn't automatically make her entitled to anything. Limiting interactions with her is a good move, and if she continues to go on about the baby shower and registry, politely declining to attend is completely justified. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.